I do want to go back to the injuries.
No,
we have to talk about
Yeah.
why. Why
here.
are they happening?
Pontus,
It's like
I'm here.
I want to hear your theories.
Pontus, we need Real Madrid's Champions League winning fitness and fitness coach. Pontus, he's the best fitness coach in world football. And since we've had Arsenal's fitness coach, I can't remember his name.
His doctor, to be fair.
It's just been a horrific amount of injuries since then, and he's ruined our football club.
Right. So he's actually not like, he only recently started. A lot of the injuries happened before he even came into place. But in terms of the injuries, one thing that plays a massive part, players don't recover, and that's partly because we're traveling so much, including across the Atlantic Oceans, the west coast of America.
Last year, that was a big problem.
Yeah, last year it was ridiculous because they had, games starting on like the east coast of America, ending on like the west coast, and like you have to remember, I'm pretty sure the United States of America is like a similar size or bigger than Europe, and we talk about European games like being a pain to recover from Thursday to Sunday. We're having games every few days. So in the space of like 2 weeks, we've flown across America. Even Christian Eriksen said they just can't recover. Like, you can't recover when you're constantly flying or on long coach journeys and stuff. In the Premier League last season, we played so many games. Played so many games the season before that. When you've got that many games and you're traveling that much and you're playing at an intensity that you're not used to playing at because the players are not conditioned for that, then you are going to have injuries. You're going to struggle. So I think the travel is a big part of it. I think Dylan said this, the pitches in America are so bad.
We saw in the Copa America how bad they were as
well. I don't know how we're going to have a World Cup there in 2 years.
They're going to have to sort it out.
They're going to have to because, bro, there is going to be a record number of injuries in the World Cup if that's not sorted out.
Yeah,
but
100%.
The pitch is like, I mean, people are saying, oh, it was real grass on the pitch we played Arsenal on. It was real grass laid on top of Astro, which I'd argue is actually even worse than just playing on Astro. Because you've got all the grass like being cut up and slipping around and stuff, and then Astro beneath it. It is actually ridiculous how bad the pitches are there. And this is why people are saying like, oh, United's fitness regimes have always ruined Yoro. Bro, he just took I'm pretty sure he just took an awkward step on, a terrible pitch, and that's what's done his metatarsal.
There's nothing that you can put on the medical team with Yoro's injury. That's just not necessarily a freak injury, but it's just one of those where it just happens. It's got nothing to do with the load on the muscles. It's got nothing to do with recovery. It's just, you're just unlucky there. And Yoro, like we said this earlier, he's literally been, I know you tweeted it as well, he's literally only ever been injured for like 3 days in his entire career.
Game.
I know he's 18, so there's not been a lot. But he's been injured for 3 days.
He's played like 55 career matches.
In a very physical league as well, by the way.
Yeah.
It's not like he's never played, so he's never had an injury record.
Yeah.
This is his third full season, realistically. Yeah. But I think on a larger point, if we please bin off the US, like going there on pre-season tours.
I agree.
I just even for the sake of watching the games, I know there are many people out there, and I'm sure some of you watching do this, where you're up at 1 a.m, 3 a.m.
It's rough.
Well, and massive props to you, but I've done it twice now, and I'm like, when we went to to Australia, it was great. The games were like at 9 a.m. It was fantastic. Going pre-season tour there, even if that means that somehow I can go next time, I'll fly over to Australia. Or can we have a British pre-season tour? Can we just go play in the British state? That'll never happen. I know. Or even European, go and play against. I don't know, go for a pre-season tour in Italy. Why not?
Good South America. Try something new.
No, yeah, it will always generally be Euro Americas, Australia, Asia. It can't ever be Europe because Man United will think of it as where are a large audience of ours who can't usually go to games. Yeah, it's commercial. The amount of money they make going to these pre, and that's why last season as well. I think a part of the reason why we had 8 pre-season games was also financial. That was also a big part of why we had 8 games.
We played 2 games in 2 days.
Yeah,
the week before.
I see a lot of talk about that training and stuff. There's a lot of mixed reports, right? Some people say, oh, he's making the players work too hard in training. But then Ten Hag himself is saying we don't train. We're just recovering in training because we don't have enough time between games to properly train. The pre-season's actually too short as well, by the way. We ideally need like a 6-week pre-season, really get into our stride.
Gradually get into it.
Yeah, but we instead have a full week one, so you kind of have to cram it a little bit, and that's not right for the players. But then games are coming every 3 or 4 days at the minute, so you don't have time to recover properly between games. You're playing that many games. You're playing at intensity. And this is not just a United thing, by the way. Klopp and Pep have both spoken about the schedule and about how people don't train. But at the end of the day, I see so many different theories and stuff on Twitter, and I'm like, look, we don't know what's happening in training, truly. Right, we can hear reports here and there. At the end of the day, we're not on the grass, right? We don't know exactly what is going on in those training sessions. And we have to remember, right, that for the last decade or so, these players have not been physically conditioned, right? We have to remember Mourinho, when he came in, he ripped up the sports science department. Now, stuff like, okay, GPS tracking, people complaining about that was a bit silly. Like, it really, you know, I listened to a podcast, the Training Ground Group podcast with Rui Faria, him saying, I'm a sports scientist, I don't like GPS, anyone can look at numbers, I want to see how the players train myself. And that's understandable. And actually, when Faria was here, it wasn't as bad, but he completely ripped up the sports science department. A lot of very necessary departments of the club were not present, and then Solskjaer had to build it back up. But it's just not been at a good level. And when we talk about the Glazers and how they've ruined the club, right, it's not just, oh, they've not bought players. No, they've not invested in necessary infrastructure. Look at the facilities at Carrington, they're all bad. Like Jim Ratcliffe saying, we need to build an entire new training ground. That's not for, I want to show fans like I'm doing something. No, we actually need a new training ground. Ronaldo came and said, the facilities haven't been changed since I was here the first time. There is a lot of things that go into it. So yeah, maybe the players are not being trained in the best way. The intensity of games is very high. Now, towards the end of last season, we saw, them managing the intensity a bit better. And I think in the pre-season so far as well, actually, when we've been pressing, we look better. And this is still, like I say, players like Menu yet to come back. A lot of players yet to come back. But we have been run badly for a long time, all right? The facilities are not good. The infrastructure is not good. Sports science hasn't been present. So Ten Hag took over a squad that is not physically conditioned, right? And that doesn't change overnight. Yeah. We have to physically condition these players to play high intensity football. And the demands of Ten Hag's football physically are greater than the demands of Arteta's football, the demands of Guardiola's football. I mean, even Liverpool, when Klopp took over, had a lot of injury issues because Klopp came and they played a long season. Remember, they were in the Europa League, a lot of games, and he was demanding a lot of high-intensity football. And the players had to get to that level. Eventually, he got to that standard, all right? So, again, I don't know what's happening in training. I can't comment on what's happening in training. But when, for over a decade, players haven't been conditioned correctly, the facilities aren't good, there's going to be growing pains. And I see these injuries as growing pains, as annoying as they are. And I think there's just a lot more to it than people realise. Like, Dilla had a chat with Ryan about this, and he was explaining about the role recovery plays. And that's actually one of the biggest factors, to be honest. Recovery, they're not recovering when they're travelling so much. Even within England, like all these coach journeys and train journeys and stuff, there's so much to the injury situation. And I think a lot of the time people just jump to conclusions. They want to find scapegoats, but really a lot of us, myself included, can't put it down to one thing. We don't truly know the cause. Like, we can say this is a factor, this is a factor. We don't truly know what's causing it.